Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the Signworld public webinar today. My name is Jeannie Borum, and I am part of the corporate team here at Signworld, and I'll be moderating our session today. For those of you who may not have participated in a session previously or watched one of our recorded sessions, I'll just quickly give you an overview of what to expect for our time together. First, we're going to get an introduction from the owners that are current Signworld owners today. And they're going to share a little bit about themselves, where they're located, their number of years in business, their former backgrounds, a little bit about their business as far as size and scope, number of employees, things like that. After our owners do their introductions is the fun part where we turn the floor over to you all as our guests and participants joining us today to ask your questions of the owners that are joining us. I'll call you off by name and ask you to come off of mute, share where you're located, and then go ahead with a single question for the panel to each individually answer. So you'll get multiple responses to that single question. We do ask you to keep it to a single question when asked, and if time permits, we'll be able to go around again another time, again, if time permits. I do see quite a few attendees on the call here today, so we might only get a chance for one, but hopefully the other questions that are being asked will be insightful for you as well. So with that said, and without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce you to our owners who are participating as panelists today. And I always like to go ladies first, and it happens to be one of our newer owners. So Tanya, let's go ahead and start with you.
Great. Thanks, Jeannie. And Sheree and Jeannie, should I go ahead and answer all questions in my intro? Or
yes, go ahead and do that.
Okay,
Thank
awesome.
you.
So thank you. So my name is Tanya Hudson. I'm the owner of Paradise Signs and Graphics. We're located in Titusville, Florida, which is right on the Space Coast. We're right where NASA is, where all the rockets are being launched now. I can see them from my backyard, so it's a really cool place. I grew up here, moved away for 25 years, and am now back living the dream. So we opened our doors February 6th of this year. So we've not been in business a year yet. We just expanded our space. We right now have 3,600 square feet. We started with 2,400. The unit next to us came available. And so we went ahead and took it over. It was probably 3 or 4 months sooner than we really needed it, but we also knew if we didn't jump on it, it would be gone. So we went ahead and jumped on it. So we have a total of 3,600 square feet. Currently, we have 1 employee, but we're getting ready to hire a second full-time employee who will be a sign maker, and then possibly a part-time admin / office assistant. Our sales projections for this year are, I'm going to say 150 to 160. We're sitting right at 113 now, but we have $510,000 sitting in estimates. So if one of these large projects, I mean, one of them is over 100,000, several of them are 70, 80,000. If one of those comes to fruition before the end of the year, maybe we could, beat that. But I'm going to say 150 and 160 right now by the end of the year, which again will not be quite a year in business. Our biggest customer right now, largest client, he's a repeat client. It's a nonprofit. They help homeless people here, and we're sitting right at $13,000 with a lot of estimates still in live that I know they're going to come back to us for. And then we had the largest project itself was a company in Orlando. They wanted 2 flush-mounted reverse channel letter projects for their company. They've also come back to us, and we've got a lot of projects in queue now with them for additional signage. That was really cool. In terms of my background, my career, I've been in the corporate world up until I became a Signworld owner. I started out in the natural gas and energy industry as a senior environmental scientist. I have a chemistry degree and an environmental management master's, which you would never imagine I'm making signs now, but I am. Well, not me personally, but my company. And so I ended up, the first half of my career, I stayed in the compliance kind of area. I kept environmental, but I also gathered OSHA safety, pipeline safety, and so forth. And midway through my career, I was asked to move over into the chief customer officer job. And that was the second half of my career. I was in customer service and leading large teams for both the natural gas industry. And then I moved into banking and worked for Wells Fargo for 3 years, leading their call centers on the east part of the country. Up until 2021. And then I took about a year off and made a decision to start my own business. And that's where I am at. Here I am now.
We're so glad you joined us. Thank you for that introduction, Tanya. All right, let's go to our next somewhat newer owner, Pete Duckinson. Please give an introduction.
Thanks, Jeannie. My business is Metro Center Signworks. We are in Nashville within the city limits, just a couple of miles north of downtown. Opened just as COVID was shutting everything down in April of 2020. So we're about 3.5 years in. It was a great time to start a business. We're in 3,100 square feet, been in the same space since we started. I have 2 full-time employees and 1 part-time, a full-time sign maker, full-time installer, and part-time designer, plus myself. We're on track to do about 400,000, maybe a little bit more this year, just depending on current projects getting all the way across the finish line before the end of the year. My biggest customer is a chain of autism therapy clinics that are actually based in Indianapolis, but they bought a local chain here, and we rebranded all of those facilities, plus they built 2 new ones in the same area in our region. That totaled about $50,000 in sales over the 7 or 8 facilities that were rebranded. My background, I'm an engineer by training, spent most of my career, 32 years, in the steel industry, so have a heavy manufacturing background. I was general manager for one of the business units for the company I was working for. So worked my way up through engineering, sales, operations management, and general management. And then spent 3 years in the office products business, which was, it's a horrible business to be in. But I learned a whole bunch of things there that I was able to put in place that really gave me a jump start in starting my own business. Things I'd never been exposed to in heavy industry.
Very good. Thank you very much, Pete. All right, let's go to Mr. Conklin for the final introduction here today.
Good afternoon or good morning for you Californians. So Don Conklin, we're in Beaufort, Georgia, which is about northeast of Atlanta, Georgia. We've been here for 12 plus years. So it seems like forever, but it's only been 12 years. We are in a facility of 12,500 square feet. We have 23, 24, I can't keep track, but it's 20 something employees. I think it's 23 today, if no one's quit. We are looking at 5.6 or 5.7 in revenue this year. Largest customer is a storage company out of Atlanta. We did $1.4 million with them last year. As far as large projects, we don't have any huge, we have a lot of $50, $60, $70, $80,000 projects for monument signs and channel letters. So I wouldn't say there's one that's like, aha, this is a huge project, except for the fact that you may or may not know this, but we are decorating and undecorating the Georgia Aquarium for Christmas. You don't think that's a sign thing, but they hired us because we did all their sign work and they loved us. So we're going to do that overnight one night and make money doing that. So
sounds like a fun project. What was your former career before you chose to open a sign company, Don?
I was a house husband. No, I was in customer operations in the phone company. So
you're still a husband, right?
I'm not a house husband.
We what did Teresa do before she joined the business with you?
She was in IT in the phone company.
Very good. Well, thank you for introduction. We do have one more. Jack Warner is also on our panel today. Jack, go ahead.
Morning, everybody. I'm Jack Warner. I joined Signworld back in 1995, back when we were retail without a digital printer, with the yellow pages, kind of the different world then. Started in 1,100 square feet with 1 employee, ended up 10 years later in 5,000 square feet, staff 11, doing about 1.3 million in revenue. My largest customer was a regional developer for Subway that I did about $250,000 per year with them. I then sold my operation, went into a partnership with our founder and former president, Ken Kent, for several years, learning his end of the business, finished buying him out in 2014. I'm now the president of Signworld. So when I answer my questions today, if it goes to, experience. I'll answer from that perspective. If it goes to more to training and policy, I'll answer from that perspective. Prior to Signworld, I ran a wholesale food distribution company.
All right, very good. So now the fun starts, and we do have quite a group. I see 10 participants in, so I am going to ask you to keep it to a single question when your name is asked to go ahead with the question for the group. Might want to have a backup one because your question might be asked before we get to you. So here we go. Mr. Greg Corbell, if you can take yourself off of mute, tell us where you're located and go ahead with the question for today.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm joining you today from just outside of Philadelphia. So appreciate the opportunity to join here. I guess maybe a question that I've got here pertains to, and I recognize we've got a mix of duration for companies, but can you speak to a little bit of and I think Tanya, you did speak to this a little bit, but some of the early days, some of the key challenges in getting things off the ground, and whether, I guess, Don, you probably feel like you probably hit your stride here in terms of operations, but what you foresee as the remaining steps to really kind of hit the stride and keep things moving at a clip.
Okay. So start with our newest owner. Tanya, what would you say are the earliest or the challenges that you face as an early owner in the business?
How many hours do we have? No. I think the biggest challenge was the not having ever made signs before, right? I got so caught up in that early on with, how am I going to do this? My husband and I are in the business together. We've neither one done this before, but everything that you'll hear is that you are not the one making the signs. You're running a business, right? So you focus on the things that a business owner should be running, and you leave the sign making up to your employees. So early on, challenges were finding space, getting the equipment here and in, because there's, forklifts and all kinds of things that we don't own a forklift to get the equipment in. And then hiring your first employee. I'd say those are the three big ones, but we made it through. We didn't have any major hiccups. We leaned heavily on Signworld. They helped us with, especially the interviewing of our first employee, which our guy is just absolutely hands down amazing. He's got 35 plus years in the business, just incredible guy. I can't say enough about him. We would not be where we are without him. So we really, really lucked out with him. Finding the space, we actually lucked into this one too. And then, the equipment, we figured it out. I mean, my new saying like this whole year, and it's not a real word, but it's my word, is everything is figure outable, right? So it's all figure outable. You just have to think outside the box. So I would say thinking outside of the box is probably your number one asset, especially early on.
Very good. Thank you, Tanya. Pete, how about you? What would you say are the biggest challenges you faced in your first year?
For me personally, it was understanding digital marketing. Not something I ever had any exposure to, didn't understand any of the terminology. I hooked up with a company that did a respectable job, if not awesome, for me. I've changed a couple of times since then. I still don't really have a good grip on it, but I try not to make it my job to do that stuff. The second one, and I, like Tanya said, I got really lucky, but I know several people that had trouble hiring their first employee or keeping their first employee.
Mm-hmm.
Hiring that one first good one it just makes a huge difference in your ability to ramp up your business.
Okay, very good. Don, 12 plus years, going back to the early days, what were your biggest challenges in the first year, and when did you feel like you've hit your stride?
I would say the biggest two big challenges. One was marketing ourselves, right? So it's getting yourself established in the marketplace. So that talks a lot about being out there at chamber meetings, at networking meetings, and things like that to get yourself established, because you have no business when you open up the door. Today, 86% of that revenue I told you about is repeat customers. But those repeat customers happen because we started doing networking early on. So I would say the biggest challenge for any new owner is to get themselves established and get some customers that will be repeat business for them. The second one, though, I mean, it's any business, it's employees. I say I have 23 employees, but I probably hired 10 employees and fired 8 this year because we're trying to fill out the, the last couple of people on the team. So today's day and age, employees, it's been a challenge, but I think we'll be fine. As far as hitting stride, I'd say 5 or 6 years in. Teresa and I have 2 of our sons in the business, and they've basically been doing a great job helping us run it while we go on vacation all the time. So.
Yes, and you do lots of vacations. I see your Facebook posts and I'm always jealous. So that's
Well,
fantastic.
I'm in town for another 6 weeks, Jeannie, so don't worry.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. All right, let's go to Jack.
Just real quickly, you're starting a business from scratch, so it's getting your process and procedures in place. That's a constant development. It's figuring out who is the right customer, and what can I make for a sign, and then it's managing the project. So there's a lot of moving parts in that early stages, and it's putting your arms around it and going after it. It's a lot of fun.
All right, very good. Let's go to our next guest with the question. Ken Rutherford, if you can take yourself off mute, tell us where you're located and go ahead with the question.
Hi, it's Ken Rutherford. I'm in north of Atlanta, just a little bit west of Don, whom I know. And my question is, how did you or do you structure compensation for your salespeople?
Good question. So some owners don't really have a salesperson right away, but Tanya, what would you say? How would you structure your compensation for a salesperson if you were to have one?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm the person now and I'm getting no compensation only because I'm putting money back in the business. But how I would structure it is, I haven't really given that a lot of thought. I would say, there needed to be some key metrics that they would need to meet, but certainly a percentage of sales that turn into a project would be an easy way to do it. There are other methods, conversion rates, where you take, look at how many estimates end up turning into orders. You could do it based on that. There's a lot of different reports that Corebridge gives you, which is really helpful. And you can track it by salesperson. So doing it based on either total sales or conversion rates or something, some combination of the two would be where I would start if I had a salesperson. Other than myself.
Yeah, well, you're a great salesperson. So Pete, how about you? Do you have one today? And if
I
so,
do not have a salesperson. It's me. And I pay him minimum wage just for regulatory reasons. If I had a full-time salesperson, it would probably be a base salary plus a percentage of gross margin on orders when they're closed.
Okay. Don, do you guys have a salesperson? And if so, how do you structure your pay for them?
We have several salespeople. We've never paid a dime in commission in 12 years. They're all on salary. And our philosophy is that, as a business, we are all successful when we all get revenue in the door. So we don't have any fighting and stuff like that. But I do know that that's different than a lot of other Signworld owners. The other Signworld owner that's probably larger than me, I know he does it based upon percentage of revenue. So he does it. He's got a base salary plus percentage of revenue for some of his major salespeople in there over in Texas. So if I was to do it, that's kind of how I would do it. But I don't see a need to do it at this point in time.
Okay, very good. Jack?
There's very few Signworld owners that have in fact, I don't know of any that have a salesman that's out hunting for business. This is more of a gathering business between repeat customers, referrals, and internet. The leads are coming to us. So it's more of a customer service responder, a gatherer, not a hunter. So it's more of an hourly or a salary, as Don said. There might be a bonus for on a quarterly basis or whatever, some margins, but it's really a gatherer individual, not a hunter individual.
Okay, very good. David, is it Byrne? I hope I'm saying your name correctly. If you could take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're from and go ahead with the question.
Yeah, hi, David Byrne here. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, and I didn't have a question yet, so I'm just kind of listening in. But let me
That's
think.
okay. We can come back to you if you like.
Yeah, please.
Okay, let's do that. Let's go to our next guest, Ken Galvin. If you can take yourself off of mute, go ahead with the question for the group.
Hi, my question is, what is the biggest mistake that you've made along the way, and what did you learn from it?
Absolutely. Lots, as I talk about all the pieces and parts of putting things together, mistakes do happen. So let's start with you first, Pete. Biggest mistake you made and How'd you go about it?
Probably, I'm going to say it's going to come back to the marketing, not being proactive enough, depending too much on things just coming in. One thing I learned from Don when I was starting up was Don told me to go out and make friends. And I didn't do enough of that. We would have, well, of course, it was not a good time either during COVID, but that would, I didn't take marketing and networking seriously enough.
Don, how about you? What was the biggest mistake you've had in your business?
Hiring my sons. No. I would
They're the
say,
ones that let you go on vacation all the time.
yeah, I know. They just called me to harangue me, so I called them the harangutans. I would tell you that the biggest mistake I made was not marketing my business as soon as I signed the paperwork. So.
Okay, very good. And marketing back then was a lot different than it is today. Your yellow page time. So.
Oh, I was not. That's
You're not
Jack
that old?
Warner. That's Jack
All right.
Warner.
All right.
Okay.
Keep it in perspective. Different decade. All right. Let's go to Tanya. Biggest mistake you've made.
Yeah, it was a project for sure. And it was a box truck that we wrapped the cab and the truck. It was about a $10,000 job, 10 or 12. And when the artwork was provided by the customer and she approved the proof. However, when we printed it, it was fairly pixelated. We should have gone back to her at that point and shown her what the print looked like before we wrapped the truck. We wrapped it anyway. When she went to pick it up, they were very unhappy with it. And it really did not look great. So we ended up negotiating kind of a splitting of the redo, and we only charged them $900 more. We probably lost about $2,000 worth of profit. I won't say we lost money on the job, but we made, maybe $800 on it when we should have made several thousand. And so, but from a customer service perspective, it was important for me because we did have some ownership in it. I felt like, not the whole ownership, but some of it. And they ended up giving us a 5-star review, and they've given us multiple leads since then. So it was a smart decision, but that was the biggest mistake we made. Never again.
Those will happen. Jack, how about you?
I really believe that while the internet becomes our best friend of bringing us leads, we're too busy chasing the next stranger rather than really developing the customers we already have to find out who they know and who they're connected to. No customer should be a dead end. So it's really figuring out what percentage of your customers are becoming dead ends and what percentage are getting you to somebody else. It's leveraging the people that already believe in you.
Very good. All right, let's go to our next guest, Lana Danilova. If you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're from and go ahead with the question.
Hello, everybody. I'm from California, Silicon Valley, San Francisco Bay Area. And my question is about the money, because in the past, I was working in the financial industry. Could you please elaborate a little bit about what's the cost of production versus cost of installation, and how do you manage it?
Interesting question. Let's start with you first, Don. You're the figure. Always know your metrics.
I would say the cost of production, cost of goods is running about 30% for me, so 70% gross margin. Installation cost runs about 15%. Labor cost for production is about 20%. Net to the bottom line is about 25% net margin, which either goes back into the business or into mine and Teresa's pockets. So those are the big metrics that I look at for the most part.
I love that he knew exact percent. Did you say 17% for installation? Did I hear that right?
No, 15. I'm not that exact.
Okay, I was just gonna say Don teaches a know your numbers session at our convention every year. So he just once again showed why he knows his numbers. So very good. Pete, how about you? What would you say your cost of goods, cost of install?
I could not break that down for you that finely. I don't know my numbers like Don does. I average about 50% gross margin across the board. But one thing to understand is the margins vary greatly depending on who's doing the work. In-house work, if you're producing in-house, much higher margins. And if you're installing yourself, much higher margins. Anything you outsource, you're going to take a hit on. It's not going to be as attractive. So all I can really say is that we're averaging 50%, with 50 to 55% gross margins. That's not net profit.
Right, but that includes install if you have it and
Yep.
overall
Yep.
cost of goods. Okay, very good. Thank you. Tanya?
Yep, I also don't have all of those numbers like Dawn does, but I can tell you I have work to do on my gross margins. Right now, I'm at about 35%, but I have some categories that are up as high as 80, 90, and some that are, you know, much lower. So I've one of the things I'm working on right now is digging through those numbers to figure out where I need to increase that within the system so that I'm increasing those numbers. But right now I'm sitting at 35, but again, with some much higher than others.
Very good. Jack, your thoughts?
You know, it's always dangerous to oversimplify a P&L, but for conversation's sake, oversimplify it. 25% cost of raw materials, 25% staff labor, 25% contribution overhead, leaving at 25% net to the owner. On the early stages, as Tanya is in, she's still got some overhead on lower revenues, so her nets are going to be smaller. She's got a bigger contribution to rent and utilities. As you get to where Don's at, rent, utilities, and all those other things run a much smaller one. This should be a 25% net profit industry. We have owners that are over 30% net.
Very good. Thank you. Let's go to our next guest, Amanda Shepard. If you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're from and go ahead with the question.
Hi, yes, thanks. I'm from the Fort Myers, Florida area. And also being a finance person, my question was kind of around the numbers too, a little bit more loosely than that. But can you tell me about when you started breaking even and around when the business started earning revenue? And kind of how quickly that helps me get a gauge on kind of how quickly the business started coming in for you.
Yep. All right. Let's go to our newest owner. Tanya, have you broke even yet? Month over month, sales covering your expenses? Tell us a little bit about that.
It's been interesting. You know, we steadily grew. February, March, April, May, June, July, we had a month that was 45,000 in sales, which I was like blown away because the month before we were at like 18. But then it dropped 12, and then it's the month after that, which was September, went up to almost 18 again. And so now, you know, we'll see what October brings, but we definitely had like a very quick ramp up and then sort of a little bit of a nosedive. But I think some of this is just evening out. And a lot of these are some large projects that came in and closed right in that month where we had the kind of the $45,000 month. You know, it's hard for me to say exactly that, you know, where we're breaking even because I'm pouring a ton of money back into, I don't know if it's advertising per se, but sponsorships within my 3 chambers that I'm a member of. I'm on a board of governors. I've got a lot of projects that I'm sort of pouring money back into that probably would have been profit if I wasn't doing this. So right now I'm really just focused on growing the business and I'm not taking a salary right now. So I'd say, yes, I think we're at this point, we're breaking even and probably making a little, but again, I'm putting that back in. So I would say if I had to guess, I'd say July was my starting to make a profit month. And we opened, as I said, February 6th.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Pete?
I don't look at, or I do look at month over month, but I think looking at it monthly is a very skewed just because of the lumpiness that you can get. Like Tanya said, I look at a quarter, a quarterly profit, and a first profitable quarter was after, it was just under 2 years where we actually had a profitable quarter.
Okay, very good. Don, how about you?
We broke even cash on cash in our second month. And then you're going to ask Jack who's going to show me up. But yeah, it's our second month. And then I was taking a salary consistently after 6 months.
Okay, very good. Jack, you want to go ahead and trump Don on your when you were cash positive?
I worked really hard and lean. I was actually cash positive first month, first paycheck, 6 months. Average to break even is about 6 months. Modest income year 1, better year 2. most back to a corporate income number after 18 to 24 months.
Very good. All right, let's go to our next guest. Giles Frith, I think is the last name. Hopefully I said that right. If you can take yourself off mute and go ahead with the question.
Sure, you got the last name right. It's Giles though on the first
Okay.
name. Giles Frith. I live outside Seattle in a little island called Vashon Island. So the question I have is around kind of lead gen and kind of, how do you build a business, when you don't, have a network? Like my background is more like Tanya's where, corporate customer success, like business to business, these big organizations. Like I understand the service, how to service customers, but I don't know how I'd find them. How do you guys really, what are the advice you'd give a new prospect on how to find new business?
Yeah, great question, Giles. Most of our owners, actually more than 50% of our owners come from an engineering background. So, finding customers, talking to customers is not the expertise for most owners when they join the business, but they definitely learn how to do it. Pete, let's start with you. How'd you start finding your customers and what would you suggest to a new owner?
Yeah, so the most important thing that I'm going to say, there's two important things. The first one is get your website built and get the SEO and the Google ads going as fast as you can, even before you open your doors. Still today, something like 60 to 65% of our leads are still coming from our website. And I'm not doing any Google paid ads anymore. I stopped that after a year. So the SEO and social media marketing, those are critical. I also had no local business network. I worked for global companies and national companies and was not in any kind of sales in the local region. So you get out and network, join a BNI chapter, join the Chamber of Commerce, and find other networking opportunities. Those are the two main places you're going to get all your business from.
Very good. Thank you. Don, how about you? How did you get your first customers early in the years? And what do you suggest to new owners today?
I would say it was going to networking meetings for me. I went to 6 to 8 networking meetings a week for 3 to 4 years before we were established that in the internet. And then, as Jack would always say, don't let any customer be a dead end. It's working those customers that you get in the door, because unless they're a brand new business, they got signs from someone else somewhere else before that. So you just want to be the person that makes it easier for them to get signs for the most part.
Okay, very good. Tanya?
Yeah, so I feel like this is definitely my jam. This is like my area where I excel. So, which is probably why we have $510,000 sitting in estimates right now. But so I am a member of 3 chambers, a BNI group. I'm probably about to join the 4th that's in our county, the 4th chamber. I'm a member of a leads group, multiple committees within the chambers, and I am also on a board of governors for a playhouse locally. Through all of those events, I am out and about anytime in any given day between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. I'm out 80% of the day doing this stuff, but it's because I love it. I enjoy it. It's fun for me. I get, I'd say 80% of my jobs through these networking events. Really only about 20% right now is coming from the web, and we have a great web presence, and we're doing pay-per-click and all of that, but I just enjoy the networking stuff so much. And most of these people are not people I knew. I told you I grew up here, but they're not old friends of mine. These are new people I've met through these chambers, the BNIs, the different committees that I sit on. And so it's just really, people want to buy from people they know, like, and trust, right? So I'd much rather go to somebody I know, like, and trust than somebody I've never met before, even if they both have, similar products and similar prices. So I completely agree with the website, SEO, pay-per-click, get that up and running. You want to choose a very good company for that. That is very important, especially if you're not like me and you don't love that networking part. You're going to need to lean very heavily on your web presence. But I think the networking is really, really critical.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Jack?
Before I give my answer, I'm going to start a couple of slideshows that'll go on in the background. There's no audio to them. The first one will show some of our locations inside and out, so you can see what facilities look like. Second slideshow goes to what is a sign, not only what can we make with the original equipment, what you'll outsource at least temporarily, as well as a third part of that slideshow showing some things you wouldn't even think of as a sign. It becomes part of our offerings. The third slideshow goes to some of our bigger projects and showing the wall of fame of how we get into bigger and bigger stuff. You know, we probably have 6 or 7 new Signworld owners like Tanya that moved and relocated and really didn't have a local network. And so it's getting out there and just getting involved in the community. The next thing is to realize that while Tanya's doing a lot of that right now, it's not a forever thing. It's not, I gotta be in all these things forever. It's until I can establish that repeatable customer base, and then it becomes more building it. If you had to do that for the rest of your life, that's a lot of chasing to do. I don't think Don goes to any meetings anymore and doesn't need to. So it develops over time. But we're going to give you 52 different activities, 56 different activities. None of them include knocking on doors. We don't want you out knocking on doors. This is really a relationship building business, not a cold calling, hard sell business.
Jack, you've added 6 more ideas. I thought it was 50 ideas just not so long ago. So added more. All right, very good. All right, let's go to our next participant, Sam Baran or Baron. Please take yourself off mute and go ahead with the question.
Hi, it's Baron. My question is just about time invested in that first year. You know, on a day-to-day basis, are you working 8-hour days, 12-hour days, 5-hour days? How much time are you in the office?
Okay. Let's go ahead. Let's start with Don, who I think probably works the least out of this group as we talk about all of his trips. Don, how many hours a day are you actually, let's say, how many hours a year are you working now? No, just kidding.
Well, I'll tell you from the start, we've never worked more than 50 hours a week, right? We probably in the last 12 years worked 3 Saturdays, and those Saturdays were probably partial days. I'm not going to work more than 50 hours a week. If I'm working more than 50 hours a week, that means I don't have enough people. I need to hire someone else. And that's always been our philosophy. It's a lifestyle business. I didn't start a business to be in the office 120 hours a week, you know, and me and Teresa feel the same way. And, you know, over time, you know, Jeannie said it, we've been on 10 weeks of vacation already this year. The boys are kind of running it. Teresa's retiring at the end of the year. But it took a long time to establish that and get to that point in time. But even from the beginning, I wasn't working 50 hours a week. I can't make a sign. I can't design a sign, make a sign, and install a sign. That's on purpose. This way, if we have a problem and the customer needs something taken care of, I can't do it. Someone else has to do it. And unfortunately, that was Matt, my son, to start off with, and he wasn't real happy with that, but he got over it. So.
All right, very good. Thank you. Tanya, how about you? Brand new owner, first year in business. How many hours a week are you working? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I try not to work more than 40, 45. Now, again, I'm at networking events a lot of that time. But we're open 8:30 to 5, and we try to leave right at 5, and we try not to work from home. And we really don't, for the most part. I mean, if there might be an evening event here or there, but it's a networking event, I don't really call that working per se. I'm hanging out with people I like and know. So yeah, I mean, we show up at 8:30, we close our doors at 5, and we go home.
Okay, very good. How about you, Pete?
I'm working 50 to 52 hours a week. I'm usually here 8 to 6 during the week, and a couple hours. I do my bookkeeping on the weekend. A couple hours every Saturday. So that's pretty steady. I'm hoping we can start winding that down a little bit in the next 6 months or so.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Jack?
There are owners that work a lot of hours, but if you ask them what do they do in corporate life, they said, I work a lot of hours. That's just how I'm wired. The beauty of the business is it is only Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. So the extra hours you put in are on your own desire to do more. You're either writing up a quote you promised to a customer, you're finishing a project that you committed a timeline to. I was on the Little League field at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 days a week, managing my boys' teams. It's being able to have a life along with the business.
All right, very good. Thank you, Jack. Let's go to our next guest, Johannes. If you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're from and go ahead with your question.
Hi there, I'm in San Francisco and I've been looking at this opportunity for about 2 months now. And I would like to hear a little bit more about how to estimate revenue. I feel through the documentation, I got a pretty good handle on what the costs could be, but how do I estimate and realistically look at sizes of jobs, how much time I should calculate for an average job, how much revenue I could associate with one sign maker, these kinds of questions.
Okay, a little bit around the financials. So let's kind of break that down. Let's ask what the average order size is for each of the owners. So you kind of understand like the project scope of that, and then maybe what their target revenues are past year 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, wherever they're at today. So Tanya, let's start with you. What would you say is your average order size today? And I know you gave your year 1 target, but what do you see as, future revenue opportunities in years 2, 3, and 4?
Yeah, so I think our average order size, the last time I looked at it, it was around 1,300, 1,400 maybe. Because we don't really turn down the small jobs, especially right now. So we've got a lot of, yard signs, banners, things like that. But then we have some, large $15,000, $20,000 projects. So I'd say average order, I believe, is around 12 or 1,300. What was the second part of the question, Jeannie? I'm sorry.
Just future revenue, like what you
future revenue. Gotcha. Well, I certainly wanted to be like, 500,000 my first year or more. I told Jeannie last year at the conference I wanted to win the rookie of the year. I don't think I'm going to, because my mastermind group is knocking me out of the park. But I'd say for year 2, I'd like to at least reach 300 to 500 for year 2. As I said, I'm hoping for 160 by the end of this year. So,
okay, very good. How about you, Pete?
So our average order is between 12 and 1,300, but same as Tanya. We do a few $200 jobs and some $5,000 jobs and a couple of $15,000 jobs. So it's all over the map. The median might be a little more telling. As far as, I think what Johannes was asking was, how do you estimate projects? That's just something you learn along the way. You talk to other owners, just get some guidelines. A lot of our estimating is cost plus. It's cost based. And that's just something you get a feel for in your training and with your mastermind group and other owners, the owners network. As far as estimating next year, I'm gonna be looking for 25% growth or better for next year. Now we're gonna hit 400 this year. I expect to be over 500 next year.
Very good. And most importantly, thanks for making me rephrase the question. I wasn't aware that I said that wrong. So my apologies for rephrasing that wrong, Johannes. Don, how about you? To his question, how'd you learn how to price projects and do the right estimates? And then maybe, since we're already talking about it, talk a little bit about some of those average order size and future growth expectations too.
Well, we have a dartboard in the back that has all sorts of prices on it. And when we get a project, we kind of throw a dart and see where we go with it. I know you learned that. We also have a system called CoreBridge that helps you price things out. That's not the huge issue. It really is. We're at about $2,000 average order. But we have a customer that has 50 locations and they want us to send $100 sign to each location. They want to bill it separately to each location. So it's basically a $5,000 order and 100 orders. So you got that going on. But this is to my point, and Jeannie knows what I'm going to say here, is that you got to put a stake in the ground of what you want your target to be. Right? You can't hope to do this or hope to do that. You got to say, I'm going to shoot to get $500,000, right? And that means I have to do $40,000 plus a month. And if I don't do 40,000 this month, I got to make it up next month. I mean, you got to be relentless on the numbers. You got to know what it is. You got to drive towards it. And there's history there. I mean, our first 4 years were 300, 500, $1 million, $1.5 million, right? And that was 10 years ago, right? So with inflation, it's probably going to be 500, $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million. Who knows what that number is? But what I would tell you is, the old Lewis Carroll quote: "If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there." put a stake in the ground and drive towards that. Whether you get there or not, at least you're working towards that, because you don't know, you can't reverse engineer what orders are going to come in the door for you, right? That's impossible to do. This is a business where you start every month at zero. There is no annuity in this business. You don't know what customers are coming in the door. So just put a stake in the ground and drive towards that stake. You'd be shocked to see how quickly and how successfully you can get to that number when you have a number to drive towards. And then I'll get off my soapbox.
All right, very good. Thank you, Don. Jack?
But you can reverse engineer your activities, though. If you know what your monthly goal of sales is, knowing what your average order size is, you know now how many orders you got to write up. Then knowing what your conversion rate is, you know how many quotes you got to write up, and then you got to figure out what activities will drive those quotable opportunities. And if you do the activities, the results will then follow through it. You know, it's not a get rich quick. It takes several years to build it up. You know, while I might have beat Don on break even, he beat me on $1 million. It took me 4 years to get to $1 million. I was 430, 580, 780, and $1,020,000. But I was also older than him. So my numbers, if I added them up to that timeline, we might have been even on that. You know, it's a fun business. Every project is different. Every day is different. And you work towards these different unique projects and build the results.
And friendly banter and competitiveness amongst the owners, of course, as well. So back to Johannes's question about estimating and quotes, if that was, you know, the real source of your question. To your point, I know Don mentioned it. There is a Corebridge system that you input all of your pricing into, your part pricing, your machine pricing, your labor costs for your employees, your marketing costs, and to, I believe Pete mentioned it, using cost plus as kind of a barometer. That's where most owners will kind of target their pricing. But as Tanya mentioned earlier, sometimes you're going to do something strategic and you're going to do a lower price because it's a really good customer that you see great potential with. And other times you might price it really high because it's not a customer you really want. They're not an ideal target. So if you're going to do the job, you're going to make sure you make a lot of profit off of it. But there are pricing tools and systems within your operation that allow you to create that estimate as quickly as possible and get it out the door, because that is a key component to converting a lead into an opportunity. So let's go to our last guest, Anis, if you can go ahead and take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're from and go ahead with the question. Good job. Yanis, are you still there? There you
yes,
go.
I'm here, sorry. Hi, I'm Janusz Gerasimovich. I'm from Bolton, Connecticut. It's about 20 miles northeast of Hartford. And I'm completely new to this, right? So I started looking at this opportunity last week, and you know, still trying to figure out if I'm a good fit for this, right? So my question would be, from your experience, what's the one most important skill that you have that helped you to go through this, right? Or make it, or you know, and go, you know, and be successful.
Yep, absolutely. Really good question. So Don, what would you say are the 2 or 3 key characteristics or traits as a business owner that leads to success?
I would say number one is being able to juggle. It's being able to multitask and work on multiple things at the same time. If you're working on one thing at a time, you won't be successful. It's got to be, you got to be able to juggle a lot of balls at the same time. Second one is be able to make friends. You know, again, Denise Wolf says it best. She doesn't she doesn't have customers. She has friends, and her friends buy from her. And that's what it really is being personal from that standpoint. But I would say project management and multitasking is really a key to, especially as you get larger, right? We're doing 250 to 300 orders a month, which is 10 to 15 completed a day. We have probably 60 to 70 in process any given day. You know, we have 23 people, we have 3 departments. So it's a matter of understanding how things are flowing through all the different parts of the business. You know, so it's that whole understanding of the process. Again, 23 employees isn't a lot, right? So at the end of the day, it's not like I'm managing a division of a major corporation. But, you know, from that standpoint, my son, sorry. From that standpoint, those are the skill sets you need. So.
All right. Well, tell Matt we said hi.
No, that was Steve. That was Steven.
Oh,
Steven
the
was
other.
the one that would bug me, not Matt.
All right, very good. Tell Stephen we said hi. Pete, what would you say are the top 2 or 3 things that are important to be successful in this business?
Well, I'm going to go along with Don on being able to manage projects, and along with that, understanding processes and being able to develop them and put them in place, because just a few months down the road, you're not going to be able to do everything and manage every task on your projects. So you have to be able to delegate it. You're going to have employee changes, and you don't want to have to rewrite everything or learn everything new every time you get a new employee. So understanding process management is a big thing. I'm going to throw in a third one, that just some fundamental accounting principles helps an awful lot in understanding costs, the difference between variable costs and fixed costs, and things like that, and just how basic accounting works has helped me an awful lot.
Very good. Jack, your thoughts?
You good, Tanya?
Oh, I'm so sorry, Tanya.
Sorry. That's all right. I'm gonna add 2 because I agree with everything that Don and Pete have said. I'm gonna add 2. One, the first is perseverance and moxie. So I think, having staying power and not getting deterred is important. And then the higher your emotional quotient, the EQ, which I don't know if you've heard about that, but that's kind of being able to read people, understand facial expressions, body language, connecting with people authentically. If you have a high EQ, you're going to do great in this business.
Okay, very good. Jack, your thoughts?
A couple others we can add. They've got to be a relationship built problem solver. I think most of our owners would say that that's a characteristic they have. As a business owner, you've got to be willing to delegate. And we have people that have managed hundreds of people that then become a control freak because it's their money and it's their name. So it's being willing to let them, and then it's got to be willing to accept that there's going to be some mistakes. Not every project's going to go out the door right, and we learn from those. So it doesn't have to be perfect every time, as long as we can learn from the learning curve.
Yep, absolutely. All right, David, we skipped you earlier because you didn't have a question. I'm going to come back to you now and see if you have one for the group. I think you're still on mute. All right, let's go to one last participant on the call here today. Carrie Schneider, do you have a group for the owners today that you'd like to ask?
Yeah, thanks, Jeannie. Carrie Schneider, Bend, Oregon, Central Oregon. Just a question about when you're first getting started, how do you decide maybe which customers you plan on targeting, or maybe what industries or sectors, or do you find it just kind of finds you?
It's a very good question. So many opportunities out there. What do you decide to go after? Let's start with Pete. What would you say to that question?
That's pretty tough. It's tough to, I think, when you're starting out, to target anything unless you really have an affinity or a relationship in a certain industry. I think I can't remember the guy's name in Texas now, but he came from the construction industry, so had a lot of relationships there and did a lot of business starting out with that. But unless you have that, something like that, I think it's really hard to target any particular business. But over the course of your first year or two, you start to learn what businesses you do, what industries, what markets you do best in, and you get a better feel for who you like to work with and who are better customers for your type of business and your location.
Very good. Tanya, what would you say? Have you started to go after particular customers or project types yet?
Well, I have lofty dreams. So I've been saying from the beginning, I want to wrap a rocket over at NASA. I want to wrap a rocket, and I also want to wrap a cruise ship. I understand there's an owner in the Signworld world, there was recently, that had a disastrous cruise ship wrapping incident, but I still am determined I want to do it. But I would say, honestly, it's very difficult to target in the beginning. I completely agree with what Pete said. You're really just wanting to see what your market is driving. Every market's different. When we go visit all the different Signworld owners around the country, and even within the same region, you know, they're doing different things. They're focusing on different things. You kind of find your niche as you go along. So I would say, you know, starting out the gate, just, you know, like, I think it was Jack that said that, unless you have a person that you're really targeting, I mean, a group that you know, and you're part of, and you're have a natural in with, it's difficult to target in the very beginning. But I am starting to hone in on some areas where here, there's the Port Authority here where they've got, you know, all the cruise ships come in and there's a lot of industry there. I'm really trying to get in with those, but I haven't been as successful. So most of my best customers and groups have found me, and nonprofits is one of the ones I never expected to have as profitable customers to me, but I've gotten quite a few really great jobs from nonprofits. So I would say don't assume, and I would say, you know, don't worry about that focus early on. Just see what comes to you based on what everything that Signworld's recommending you do. If you follow those, you'll start to figure out where your niches are.
Very good. Don?
Yeah, our niche is people who don't care about price and care more about service. And that's, I mean, seriously, it's, you know, the people who like turnkey stuff. That's what we do. We like to deal with customers that have multiple locations, multiple projects, and they come to us just because they don't want to deal with the aspects of it. So think property management companies that have multiple office buildings in the Atlanta market. Think people who have multiple locations for, you know, chains of either restaurants or retail stores or storage places or whatever. But we like to deal with people who have multiple things in multiple states and multiple locations, because then that saves on design time too, because we're not really designing new stuff. We're just laying out, you know, Midgard storage on a different building versus trying to recreate the wheel with another design. So I could tell you our psychographic seriously is people who are more concerned about delivery of service than they are concerned about the price of it. No, we're not gouging prices, and we're not the lowest price, but you know, they pay for the service that we deliver to them.
Very good. Thank you. Jack, your thoughts?
What that boils down to in the beginning, it's the customer that needs a sign that has money to pay for it. But then over time, you're trying to get to opium, other people's money, so that they're not taking the money out of their wallet. And they're more concerned with getting it done right on time, because it's their job and their reputation that they're trying to cover for. You're gonna, a lot of different types of products, but you're gonna like some customers better than others, some products better than others. Your sign maker is good on vehicle wraps, go after more of them. If you're not good on vehicle wraps, but they're better on other stuff, go after other stuff. Most Signworld owners, if you asked them what niche they're in and why, they said, I did some of them and I got more of them and I like those. It develops.
Very good. All right. Well, I've gone through the whole group and I see we're right at the top of the hour. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up our conversation today. First off, Tanya, Don, and Pete, thank you very much for taking time out of your very busy days to share your honest and open feedback with the group that's here on our call today. To our participants, thanks for having the interest in learning more about Signworld. If this was an enjoyable session, know that there's many recorded webinars just like this with other panelists answering other questions that are available on our YouTube channel. So be sure to listen to those. They can be very resourceful in this part of your process. We at the Signworld team look forward to our future conversations with you and helping you on your journey to decide if this is the right fit for you. But for all, thanks for joining us again today and hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday. Have a good one. Take care all.